lying today because I was here till late last night.
Okay.
So
That was why you messaged me saying, do you need anything bringing in?
My missus is like, what are you doing? I'm going in garage to find some bits.
What time did you actually start then?
Me, today, 11.
Oh, okay.
11. But stayed till 8 o'clock last
man.
night. So, yeah, 10 o'clock in bed this morning. It was luxury.
You really have bought some bits as well. This is it's the first time we've not got a laptop on the table.
I know.
Sorry, I'm like, did you
No,
come
it
up
don't,
and
it don't
like,
matter. Like,
oh my God, this stuff's spread out everywhere.
no, that's fine.
Oh, there's some cool bits.
Yeah.
Some random bits.
Yeah.
Did you just think, all right, I'm just going to go through my garage and everything into a
Yeah,
box?
kind of. But I just thought it's like we've all been on like a journey, haven't we, with how we got into stuff and where it's led us to. And I just think it's I love the fact that we work with each other and it's like such a nice community. But I think so often we're always just like, you're always on the surface, aren't you? Just like...
But you never know the roots.
Yeah, yeah.
And it is quite interesting getting to know, like,
Yeah.
in fact, we were just, when I was just talking to you now before we started recording, we were saying how, well, I was talking about my origin.
Yeah.
You were like, oh, yeah, when you were talking to Lewis at Skona.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, yeah, we did speak about that. I forgot. That's like
Yeah.
On the internet.
Yeah.
For everyone to see.
Exactly, yeah.
Everyone knows our roots and
Yeah.
how we all met.
I think it took me like 2 journeys into work and home to listen to it all, but it was really good. It's like one of them where you just, because you find, I think we spoke just quickly about like the conspiracy theory thing.
Oh,
It's like,
yeah,
oh
yeah.
shit, I didn't know them guys were into conspiracy stuff.
I love stuff
I
like
love
that.
it.
We're going to get into that today.
That's literally what got me into listening to podcasts.
Is
It was, and you got me into
And I got you
listening
into
to
it,
Yeah. It was literally those conspiracy guys.
Yeah.
Just the podcast all about the deepest, darkest conspiracies.
And I ended up going to Ireland and meeting one of the guys that
yeah,
ran
you
the
did.
podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are...
Proper
I mean,
into it.
we're not tin hat
we're not-
wearing.
yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
I love a
Tin foil
conspiracy,
hat.
though.
Yeah.
I love it. I love talking about conspiracies.
It's like the...
Everything about them.
Yeah.
And in fact, before we actually get started, because we're going to get in deep. Hi, guys. I'm Aaron.
I'm Gareth.
And we've got Iain today.
I'm Iain.
From Great Northern Classics
Great Northern.
and the Automotive...
Automotive Utopia.
Automotive
Yeah.
Utopia, which is a very special
Yeah,
car club.
it's a car club that's just getting off the ground, and it's we say like, let's say a premium car
Could
club.
you say
but it's,
exclusive or premium?
a bit of both, really.
Yeah.
But it's
Prestigious.
it's not snobby. It's snobby.
It's not snobby.
And we don't turn our nose up. We just
Yeah?
it's a car club. It's a car club
Okay.
for people who like cars and car-centric, passionate people. And that's what it's all about.
Interesting. We
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
We like it.
We'll expand on it.
We'll get on
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, conspiracies first anyway.
Yeah.
Deepest, darkest conspiracy.
Biggest-
What is one that you really, really, really like?
I
Hope is true.
I still believe so. The other night we went out for a meal, and randomly we had our nephew who lives in Leeds, and we were in the car. So there's me, my wife, my daughter, and Elliot, my nephew. And we were driving, and I said, look at the moon tonight. It's bright. Or one of them said, look at the moon, and I'm like, right, the moon is not the moon. The moon's not what you think it is. We're like, what are you talking? Elliot was straight into it. What are you talking about? He's a clever guy. He's, university educated. He's already building his way up at Lloyd's. And I'm like, yeah, your uncle does not believe the moon is a space rock. And he's like, what? I says, it's a spaceship. And I says, and I'm going down.
I'll be honest with you, I feel like I've never heard of this one.
I'm sticking to that.
I know. I've heard.
I think you say to do a flat Earth theory or something
Yeah.
like that.
But I know people might think, oh my God, it's one of these crazy ideas. But what got it started is there's also something I've seen online recently where this guy's going, look at the moon projection tonight. So some people believe it's a projection or a hologram or something like that.
Yeah.
And there's always something in the sky. And I said, like, projector looks like it's switched on tonight. And they're like, what? And I said, see that next brightest thing in the sky? This guy is saying this is a projector. I says, like, I don't fully buy into it's a projection. I says, but when you think about the astronauts having gone up there and then what did they say? They hit the moon and it rang like a gong because it's hollow.
I actually have heard that,
Yeah, and it rang like a gong. And when they arrived, there was already somebody up there, and NASA have left tapes. And
This is where hollow moon theory comes from. I've heard
Hollow moon
this.
theory.
So
Yeah.
I love that quote that somebody said. It's easier to explain the non-existence of the moon than it is to explain the moon.
Yeah.
Because it's just up there and it's
It's just this rock.
static,
Yeah.
and it doesn't spin like we do. And if it did,
It just spins around.
yeah,
the
it
Earth.
kind of goes around in
Yeah.
that orbit, but we
Yeah.
always see one side of it, and that whole dark side of the moon.
Well,
I just find it
they
so
have got
intriguing.
pictures, apparently, of the dark side of the moon, but...
Really?
Right.
Yeah,
How?
yeah. The satellites have gone around it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a
I
big,
find space
Yeah,
so
fascinating.
Yeah,
fascinating.
yeah.
Like me and P, the missus, will go away, Airbnb or wherever it is.
Yeah.
And obviously, you know, where we live now is built up.
Yeah.
There's too much light pollution. You can't really see the stars. But when you're out in the wilderness,
Yeah, and it's like the dark sky kind
we
of
will
thing.
sit there and just stare. Be like,
Yeah.
this is really,
Yeah.
it's humbling. I don't know where.
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
Makes you feel small.
Yeah.
It makes you feel like nothing. I'm like, there is so much stuff out there that we don't know about.
Yeah.
And that scares me so much. Like, really scares me.
They reckon that people like conspiracies because it's like comforting. Like
It's an
to
answer.
know-
Yeah.
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 It's
It's
like
an answer, yeah.
Yeah.
thinking that we actually don't have anyone in control and nothing's actually happening is
Yeah.
scary to people. That the government are actually bumbling idiots.
Well,
and not like part of some grand conspiracy. It's actually
Yeah.
more comforting.
I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and they touched on conspiracies and whatever else, and they spoke about 9/11.
Yeah.
And they were talking about how obviously there's a lot of stuff coming out about how 9/11 was essentially just a fumble by the US government.
Right.
The CIA, FBI, they had the intelligence, but someone basically fucked up.
Really.
And then it happened. So, and then essentially to hide the fuck up, they hid everything and tried to hide all the different answers, and then that made it seem like even more of a conspiracy.
Jesus.
And then it's like, oh, it was an inside job, it's this, it's that,
Yeah.
when the truth could very well be, it was just incompetence.
Wow.
But no one wants to know that because that's
No,
boring.
no.
It's the answer. It might be the answer, but it's boring. No one,
Yeah.
you know
I
what I mean?
think 9/11 was definitely an inside job
Dude.
Yeah, I think.
of some sort. I don't know what
But that's what I
exactly.
want to believe. Again, that's what you want to believe, isn't
I
it?
don't know if I want to believe it. I feel because it doesn't really affect me in any way. Really, it's more just that's what I genuinely think.
Do you remember? Do you remember seeing it and everything where you were
Yeah.
when you watched?
I remember coming back from school.
Yeah, I was 13, I
So
think.
yeah, I came back from school. I remember, I think my mum had the news on, and then I remember seeing like the tower on fire.
Yeah.
On of it, I think just Tower 1 had been hit.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, breaking news.
Yeah.
Tower's been hit again. Blah blah. I remember watching it like.
Yeah.
Whoa, because there's key moments in history of like news history that I remember. There was that. There was Diana dying. I remember
Yeah, I
quite
remember
clearly.
that. I think I was in Belper McDonald's car park when it about when the lady died, but I
my,
remember I was there.
Yeah,
it's
what for
random.
Diana?
Yeah, for Diana.
How old have you been? Then?
Oh gosh, I don't know. So I was in a mate's car. He was
Probably
driving.
about
So,
31.
yeah, something like that. But yeah, it was the same thing with I was at work, and then someone's like, "Oh, have you heard there's a plane hit the Twin Towers?" And we were like, "What?" And I think we had the radio on at work, so we were just tuned into listening to it. So I didn't see any imagery until I got back. But as it unfolded in the day, it was like when people do say like it's the day the world stood still.
Yeah,
That's
it
how
really
it felt
was,
in the office we were working,
I-
in, and everyone was just like
I don't
so
remember
gobsmacked.
knowing what they were. What the
I
Twin
didn't know what
Towers
the
were.
Twins. Yeah,
My mum was
I
like,
remember
"Oh,
hearing the Twin
plane
Towers
hit the
got
World
hit.
Trade Center." I was like, "What's the
Well,
World Trade Center?"
Yeah.
So everyone's got a story linked to it, but it's nothing kind of our family members or anything. But I met my missus in the 99, like New Year's Eve going into 2000.
Right, yeah.
And we went on our first holiday in 2000. And as soon as we got back from first holiday, I think we realised we kind of like each other. We're going to be with each other. Let's book New York. So we booked to go to New York, and we booked Windows of the World on the 107th floor
The
of
cafe? No, the restaurant.
the restaurant. So we booked to go there, and so we were going in the March, and it got hit in the September. So we're booked to go. And remember seeing all this, and it's like, oh my God! It's
Wait,
like,
so you were going to go in the March after the
yes. So
right.
it happened in the September, but we booked to go
the
in the
following
March.
year.
So that, funnily enough, when we were obviously, I was saying my mum was watching the news. She was meant to go to New York that week.
Really?
Yeah, I can't remember what happened, why it got cancelled or whatever, or she didn't end up going. But that exact week she was meant to be going.
Really?
It's just weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because again,
I feel like everybody knows someone or knows someone who knows someone
Yeah.
who was...
even though it's on the other side of the world,
Yeah.
but there's
Yeah.
still some
Yeah,
sort
yeah.
of
But
connection.
we went to Ground Zero, so we went in the March. But we
Oh, did you? So you
randomly
still went there?
Yeah, but randomly it fell on exactly the 6-month anniversary of it happening, and that's when they turned on the beacons of light.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we
the
were
two just
we were
shone
on a
straight
boat trip on the Hudson when they turned it on,
Oh,
and they
wow.
put on like Star Spangled Banner, and we were on this boat with all these Americans crying, and it was like a really surreal experience
Did
to
you-
just see these two beams of light from the river going. God, we were booked.
Oh, I was going to say, did you go to the
You were
museum?
meant
But
to
that
be
wouldn't
there.
have been
No,
there.
we
when
didn't.
you-
No, so we went to Ground Zero,
Ground Zero,
and it was
yeah.
just, it was mind blowing.
Yeah.
The size of the area and the amount of concrete.
TV doesn't
and,
really give it away,
no,
does it?
No.
Until you see it. In
My dad
person.
went to
Yeah.
the museum,
Right.
like 2016, I think it was, and he said like it was like made him choke up,
Yeah.
like proper surreal.
I can imagine like it being.
Because they've got like the
that.
fire engine there, the squashed fire
Have
engine.
they?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. They've got like
Really?
pieces of the building because it's in the basement of the
Yeah.
building.
And I think still now you can still see bits, because it's an intriguing story regardless of conspiracy or whatever. And I think even now, if I see something and it's like new angle found,
Yeah,
of-
you'll look at
you,
it.
You look, don't you? Because it's like
I
a
go on
morbid
a-
kind of
morbid fascination, yeah.
Yeah. To be honest, I was talking to the missus about this because we're very similar. I don't know if it's a guy thing, but if you see some, especially recently, plane crashes.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Right, and
They've been in the news a lot.
a hell of a lot recently. And obviously, we flew out to Italy last week, and and before getting on the plane, obviously, I'm having a joke, and I'm like, imagine you heard about the Delta plane
Yeah.
that flipped.
Yeah,
And I
saw
was
the
like,
video.
imagine if we just flipped on the runway, and she was like, "Why would you say that right now?"
My missus is
I'm
saying-
like, and then I'm loading up the video to show her, and she's
Yeah.
like, "I don't want to see it."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Why? How do you not find this fascinating? I don't understand."
Some people
I
just have proper morbid curiosity, don't
Yeah.
they? Right?
Yeah.
I do.
it's-
I do it. Like I'll go on Reddit and I'll be like, I don't know, like such and such death videos. Like
Yeah.
I've got a real
But
like
you
morbid
remember
fascination.
the Shoreham air disaster when that hawker hunter came down and slammed into the
Oh,
motorway?
yeah.
And
yeah.
it was,
Where was this?
an air show in Shoreham.
Not that long, like a few
It
years
was like
ago.
a few years ago because
Yeah.
everything just got all the
Maybe.
air shows that year got kind of grounded, and this
yeah,
guy had
yeah.
performed a manoeuvre that.
It was just the one guy, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
just one guy in a
I think
hawker.
I remember.
Yeah, you will have
And he
remembered
like
it.
wiped out, but
Like 2016,
something like that. Might have been
2017.
around then, yeah.
Yeah.
But that was like another one of those things. I think anything that involves like such huge, how do I say explosions? It's not like I'm like want to
Yeah,
see the
yeah.
bigger bang, but anything like that, you're like, oh my god, like is there another angle of this?
Yeah.
You want to.
I want to see what.
Yeah.
happened.
I probably, it's weird. I go on like not a tangent, but once a year roughly, I'll go on a thing where I'm like, I just get obsessed with 9/11 again.
Yeah,
And I start
yeah,
reading
yeah,
about
yeah.
articles
Yeah.
about it and stuff like that. And then I'll do it for about a week, and then I'll just go back to normal again. And then like a year later, I'll do it again.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
It's
something
'cause
will just
every
happen.
year
and
there's
I'll-
something new.
Yeah, but it won't
Yeah, there is
necessarily be
something new.
around the time that it happened. It'll just be randomly something
Right.
will spark. Like I'll hear it on a podcast or whatever, and then I'll go,
Yeah.
and I'll just go on Reddit.
And you'll
and-
probably do it like tomorrow now, thinking, oh,
No, we've spoken about it, probably, yeah, like I was
if
looking at-
anything new has come out.
I was looking. The last time I did it was, I think around the time we moved in here, so about a year ago, and I was looking at where they put all the junk from the buildings. Like
Yeah.
they took
I
it
remember
to
us talking about
they
this.
took it to Staten Island and
Yeah.
filled a landfill with it.
Yeah.
Really?
And
Yeah.
it's just the things that you don't think about, like the amount of people that died from asbestos poisoning afterwards.
Really?
Yeah, like people died like literally like 2-3 years later. Like the people that were doing the cleanup, 30, 40-year-old people,
Good lord.
and they were
Man,
just
you
getting
don't hear
cancers
about
and
that, do
stuff.
you?
Yeah, you don't think about all that kind
No.
of stuff.
No,
Yeah.
you only think of.
So the
like,
death
in
toll
the
was
incident.
like way more,
Yeah.
but just obviously it's not reported on. that
It's
kind of stuff.
just it's mental, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I still want to believe it's an inside job.
Because the buildings were asbestos filled, which is one of the theories as to why they collapsed because they
Okay.
wanted to not because it would have cost
But it does
billions.
when you watch those kind of when people have slowed it down. I think we're in a dangerous age now with the whole AI and manipulation of videos and things, but it looks like a controlled explosion.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
when you see these
yeah.
falling down, like to fall in on itself.
Yeah.
You're like, how the hell did that happen?
What is it? A jet fuel?
Yeah.
Can't melt still.
Can't
Yeah,
melt
it's
steel
like a
beams.
3D modelling where there's a jet and it's dripping fuel and it shows you how it's all done. I thought that took some time to just break this down. And that's was like an air crash investigation when they're doing that, but
Yeah.
we're like, think,
I'm not going to
right,
lie,
so-
though. One thing that does annoy me with conspiracy theories is everyone that all of a sudden becomes a scientist.
Yeah.
You know, when you're reading Facebook comments, and people, and
yeah.
you're like, you've just copied and pasted
Yeah.
that from someone. You don't actually know that.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've got a commonality, and we both know an actual forensic scientist, don't we? As in Jim.
Yeah.
So if Jim watches this, and I'd love to think he's shaking his head.
I
Going,
know,
oh my
I know.
God, Ian, you think the moon's a spaceship?
we need to get him
You
on.
absolute lunatic.
We need to get him on.
Jet fuel actually burns it. This
Well, I asked him a question once, and I was like, oh wow, you're a forensic scientist, and he was telling me about all his background and how many cases he's been an expert witness in. Because I've known Jim for like years before here.
Should we say who Jim is, by the way? Or
Yeah,
can we say who he is?
Jim Campbell. He's
a friend. He's a friend, isn't he?
Friend of
Friend of
GNC and friend of all of
ATD,
us.
friend
Yeah.
of GNC,
He's a local
yeah.
friend of GNC. He's a member of the car club, actually.
Oh, is he? Right, okay.
But yeah, I met him when I worked for another car museum just down the road, and we just hit it off straight away. And he was just one of them intriguing characters that you just got.
He's a fascinating man.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's a fascinating man.
Like,
yeah,
what he knows and retaining information is just incredible.
Oh, people will know Jim if they've watched
From
our
our
YouTube
YouTube
video.
video.
Maserati video.
Yeah.
So
But
Jim is the
I
owner
remember
of that
saying to him,
Maserati.
I said, like, when you're piecing together, because he was like expert witness, let's say in a fire or something, says it's just always fascinated me as like, how do they know where it started?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh God, that's easy. And I'm like, yeah, but how do you know? Like, you can trace it back to an extension cable and a plug.
Yeah.
And is it because it been hottest? But how do you put together like
Where
a
do you start?
9/11
Where
and
do you
they've
even
gone,
start?
okay,
Yeah.
where do we unpick this?
I mean, never mind 9/11.
I know, yeah.
Doing it just at a house.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, you can kind of maybe... if a whole house is burnt to crisp, where do they start? But then, yeah, okay, going from that and scaling it
I think
all the way up.
9/11 took 5 years to investigate.
That's just-
2006, I think, is when they had the final report.
Yeah, where do you start?
Yeah.
I'd be looking at it like...
Let's just say it started there.
Yeah. But it's like when you do see there's been an airplane crash, and then they've got a huge hangar with every component
Yeah. Put
It's
laid
like a
out
jigsaw
piece
puzzle.
by piece by
Yeah,
piece. The patience and the effort and the time. I mean, I would not be able to sit. I can't build a Lego model, for God's sake.
Perfect.
Never mind, putting together a plane crash or working backwards on that. I think it's just incredible that.
It is.
It's phenomenal.
Especially because all the
Being a
pieces aren't
scientist.
necessarily like,
Yeah.
they're all bent and whatever else.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got a lot of people around us who obviously Rolls-Royce being in this old Rolls-Royce building, and I think some of the knowledge that they've got, like, oh yeah, no, you just do this and that component, looking at when you see that RB211 we've got in there, just the amount of components within it.
Is that the
something
one
like
in the
that.
training bay?
Yeah.
Oh, the big engine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the side cut out. It's incredible, really, when you look at the amount of components and think,
Oh, is it side cut out? I don't think I've
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
it.
It's a
you
cutaway,
know,
it's a
you know when we
cutaway.
had the Maserati in there, I was
Yeah.
like snooping around it. I don't know if you saw. You must have seen it.
I've only ever seen it from the front. I
Yeah,
don't
if
think
you
I've
if you
seen
go down the right hand side of it, there's all the sides. Like,
yeah, it's the cutaway, so you can physically see every component.
yeah, you
and
can literally
just
see all the blades and then all the lines and
I mean,
the
you think,
pipes.
imagine trying to actually, well, that bit goes there, and where's this from? You'd be scratching. But
The maddest thing is as well, like how someone thought of that to make it happen, to make it work.
That intrigues me, even down to car. I do this a lot. Obviously, we're into cars. Car engines fascinate me. Just engines in general. Like, when I'm there learning about pistons and this and that and how they fire and blah, blah. Who thought of that?
Yeah, you think who thought
Who thought? Oh, let's mix this
this
with
system
that.
of things all put together? in a
Yeah,
chain?
but then it must have started so small, so simple, but then it's just gradually got more and more complex, and now we're looking at jet engines, and and it's just like,
you understand
this
how
is
stuff
why
can
we're not
evolve, but it's how
yeah,
it starts.
yeah.
In the
How
first
did it
place.
start?
Yeah.
But then I'm like that with anything. I do the same with phones because I used to be massively into technology.
Yeah.
Did computer science, blah blah. Used to love building computers, this that whatever. But like phones always fascinated me. So back when, obviously going back to when we had like 3310s. And you're playing Snake, I'm like, this is so fascinating. Now you've got this little thing. And then I remember getting my first touchscreen phone, and it was one of those phones where, you know how an old person uses their phone?
Yeah.
But you'd literally had to...
Yeah, well, you go...
with the old
LCD
touchscreens,
It's got to
screens.
get a tone out of the key when you presses it.
But then I remember when the iPhone, when Steve Jobs did that, with his keynote speech,
Yeah.
don't know if you remember that.
Which one was that?
It was when the first iPhone was coming out.
Was it?
Because that was groundbreaking.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know if you remember that, but
Vaguely.
I watched that keynote speech because I was so into it.
Really?
I was so into my technology and
Yeah.
phones. I watched it like, oh my God, this man is a genius.
Yeah.
So I watched that keynote speech, watching the release of this iPhone, and I was like,
Yeah.
whoa.
The only thing I remember about it is at the time, Chris Moyles was on Radio 1 at the time, as presenting a breakfast show. And he had this iPhone, and he was like, you will not believe what this phone can do. And I was like, you know, I was probably still on an old kind of, you know. Thinking like, what's all this hype about? Because I've never
What's the
been like
hype?
massive, like, had to have the latest tech. And
I was
like,
always
so
like
much
that.
hype around it. But it's like, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's like, you know.
But then until you get one, I always wanted an iPhone. Obviously, back then, whenever it came out, I couldn't afford an iPhone.
Yeah.
It was £1,000.
Yeah.
And
They're more now.
And contracts were still ridiculous.
and contracts were ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah.
£300 up front. And
Yeah. But
£600 a month.
yeah.
the cheapest way I could get into getting one was an iPod Touch. So they released the iPod Touch at the same time. So it was essentially just the iPhone
Yeah.
without a SIM card.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
My brother had one of them.
Yeah, so I asked my mum, because I had a little bit of money saved. I asked my mum and see if she, like, as a birthday present, if she could chuck in a little bit of money as well and whatever else. I was like, yeah, I got my grades and blah, blah, can I have that? I can't remember how old I would have been. But yeah, anyway, bought this iPod Touch and oh my God, I was in awe, like, how the hell am I able to do all of this in this little... But then that still sticks with me now because I look at my phone and I'm like... And it just, every now and again, I'll get this feeling of, I can do everything on here. And it's this little thing that's in my pocket that can do these multiple things. I can make payments. I can book a holiday and fly to the other side of the world. I can call family on the other side of the world. Like
Make videos and edit them.
Yeah, I can film
Like
something.
everything,
Or I can even watch something like,
Watch
and
a
I'm like
film.
watching it in HD.
Was it Elon Musk that said, like, you know, with everybody with this phone in hand, we've essentially become like cyborgs? Because we've got this,
It's
the
an
world
extension
in
of
your
us.
hand.
Yeah.
It is an extension of you. Yeah.
But is it a
ridiculous.
bad thing?
Is it a bad thing?
See, this thing, has it poisoned us?
I think
It's helped us.
It's helped
There's
us
pros and
massively.
cons in there.
Yeah, it's
I
helped
think-
us, but then there's a lot of cons.
From me, someone said something recently, and it's like, he's probably wise beyond his years, and he's only like 5 or 6 years older than me, but clever, switched-on guy. And he's like, you know, asking me about my daughter and how she was. So that's where I go to when I think about tech in your hand. And he says, how's your daughter? And I was like, yeah, she's good. How old is she now? She's 8. And he said, and this is the next question he asked, and he says, and what's her relationship like with technology? And I just thought, I was
What's
like...
her tech?
What's her relationship like with technology? Right. And it kind of took me back a little bit. And I was thinking, but yeah, it's all right. And he's like, does she have a phone? Do you allow her access to a phone? Yeah. And we don't. And I know that she's only 8. She's 9 this year. But she's already asking, like, can I have a phone? So-and-so's sister's got a phone, and Daddy, can I go on your phone and everything else? So I think...
Does she have, like, a tablet or anything?
Yeah, she uses like an Amazon Fire tablet, which she plays games on. But not a lot, because we've been very kind of, not anti-tech, but we've just protected her, because you kind of go like, oh, you know, you need to stay young and play with your dolls before you start merging onto the
Before
tech.
she loses her innocence, kind of thing.
Like, it's undeniable the difference they've made in people's lives, and I think it's great. That
most people will be listening to this through a phone or watching it on YouTube on a phone.
Well, it lets us do
or
this
casting
and
it to
connect
the
to people.
TV.
Yeah.
But like, it just really, I thought, wow, what a great question, because it just made me like, what? But think about it straight away, like, stop me, and I was like, it's actually really good. Us as we protect her as much as we can where we see possible as parents, and we think we're doing the right thing, but they get to a point where you know that if they're not on with the latest trends, and they're not...
They almost have to be.
They miss it. Yeah, you don't want them to be, like, bullied. And
no, exactly.
Have the mate taken out.
It's kind of the only way I can describe it. It's like, even back when, like, we were at school, I remember not having a PlayStation yet, or a PlayStation 2, I think it was, and all my friends had one. You feel left out. And I can imagine that's what it's like. Because I always say, the day I have kids, I don't want them like sitting on their phone all the time.
Yeah.
'Cause you see
Yeah.
it all the time, don't
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
Like just to shut the kids up. Here you go. Have
Yeah.
the phone.
Yeah.
Have
Yeah.
an iPad.
We've
and
never-
that's it.
we've never been
And,
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't like that. But then at the same time, I feel as though there is a point you kind of have to
Yeah,
give up,
yeah.
and they have to have a phone.
Yeah.
Um,
Because you're kind of holding them back in a sense if you don't. Because, like, she comes back from school and, like, what have you done today? Oh, we've done this, and coding. I go, what? And, like, we did coding. She's 9 years old in July. And we're like, oh, you've done coding? Oh, yeah, it's just simple coding. I'm like, shit, I don't, that didn't exist when I was at school. We used to have, like, Commodore 64s and Archimedes and just tap away word processing. But they're, like, doing a little bit of coding now. So it's like,
That's
Well,
wow.
year
Wow.
6, we started doing ICT. That was in 2000.
Right.
Yeah.
That was we were the first year to do ICT in our school.
really?
It was like, and it was really
fun,
basic,
actually,
learning like Excel and stuff like
Yeah,
that. Word.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, if you have to put www dot before you put the website,
Yeah,
HTTP.
yeah.
You had to do the whole thing, didn't you? Whereas now you just literally
You
just
don't
type
have
in.
to do
But
any of that.
you like talk about the kind of the jump we've had from sort of, let's say very early tech. Like we've got Armstrong Sidley's in the building. We've said like basic engineering, but then we've moved so fast forward to cars that are created now in just exquisite materials and the engine craft that goes into some of these things. Like I remember playing on the computer that was literally, so I almost hit 46 now, 47 this year, playing on the computer where you just twisted a knob to hit a tennis ball against a screen,
yeah.
and then you look how far we've come in such a short leap
My
of
first computer was
time.
an Atari.
Yeah,
It was literally a big thick keyboard,
yeah,
and you just plugged it into your TV with a SCART lead,
Yeah.
and then you stuck your cartridges in the top of the keyboard.
I remember them. I never had one of them. It's
It
so.
was second hand, I think, the one we got out at AdMag, I think.
Really?
Mag.
Yeah.
It is mental now. Like going back to what you said, like cars. Like I remember just having cruise control.
Yeah.
Thinking,
Being like, what?
wow,
yeah, otherworldly.
wow.
Yeah.
And obviously, everyone that watches this, they know that our taste in cars is very kind of old school. It's when I say old school, it's very kind of 90s, noughties,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So when I drove my uncle Rick's car at the time before he sold it, and it was a Discovery 5, and it was 5 years old, something like that. I remember driving it around to his after doing a bit of work, and I think I put the cruise control on, and they had the radar assistance.
So you've only got to steer.
I was like, whoa, what's going on here? The car's just braking and speeding up
did it
on
have,
its
did it have
own.
lane assist as well?
Yeah.
God,
And I'm
lane
like, technology. It's so scary.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, like AI is the big thing at the minute.
Yeah.
And I know there's so many things like, AI is going to take over, it's going to do this and going to do that. But I think it's the same thing as other tech like phones, cars, everything else we've spoke about, the internet. It is scary, but at the same time, it is there to assist you.
Yeah.
That's what it's there to do, because
Yeah.
everything that we use now assists us. It makes life easier for us. That is the whole point of it.
Yeah.
It does obviously create other problems, but
Yeah.
the gist of it is to help us.
Yeah.
And better us as humans, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, we can become a lot more efficient in everything we do.
Yeah.
And that's essentially, I think, AI. I heard an argument about it, AI. Like, when the internet was coming out, people were scared of the internet. And then all of a sudden now, the internet is one of the most useful tools
Yeah.
to humans. And
Well, the world would collapse without it.
yeah,
Yeah.
whereas AI will also, the argument he was making is AI will also be that. It's like the
Yeah.
internet for this
Yeah.
generation.
Yeah.
It's going to be that
Such a
tool that will
jump.
help you.
Yeah.
It's not going to be people losing jobs. Yeah, okay, certain jobs will be lost, that AI will take over, but then new jobs will be created that, are helped by
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just find it so fascinating.
Yeah.
But then this is the point now, I'm starting to feel old. I'm starting to feel like our parents would have felt.
Yeah,
when,
yeah.
Like,
I find myself saying things like that
It's
sometimes.
so
thinking, oh my
weird,
God,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it's
yeah.
strange to think that, my grandma, when, she was born, there was probably, I don't know, maybe the TV had not long come out. And
Yeah.
black and white
So,
TVs.
so my wife's dad is 84,
Right.
Stuart, and he talks fondly of there was one person in the village with a car. He lives in the house that he was born in near Alfreton.
Right.
But it was like there was one person with a car, and now you can't park on the same street for cars. And you're like, that's in his lifetime.
Yeah.
So like,
What
the
he's
leaps that we're going to
he's
see,
seen is incredible.
What are we going to see now in this next 50 years? Because that we've just sort of growing exponentially now, aren't we? That kind of uptick of introduction to AI and.
Yeah.
What about? Have you seen the Google Willow computer? Have you read much about that recently?
I don't think so.
Oh my God, you're going to get deep into this then.
Let's get started.
I can't profess to know everything, but I think the headlines of it is Google have created a quantum computer.
Right.
And I don't know the tech behind it, but what I do know is it's just mind-boggling. So it's so powerful, this computer, that it outperforms every supercomputer that's ever existed, etc.
Okay.
And they set it, when they fired it up, a task that would take 10 septillion years for a supercomputer to figure out.
What's a septillion?
A septillion years is a lot of zeros. But they said
a hell of a lot of zeros.
It is longer than the universe will exist for. From now to,
okay.
It's longer than the universe.
Because this is what a Google means, doesn't it? A
Googleplex,
is
100 zeros.
Is that what it is? Yeah.
And it solved this equation that would take 10 septillion years, or solve this thing that they set a computer. It took 5 minutes for this computer to figure out this thing. And you're like,
But any
wow.
other supercomputer,
But it would take 10 septillion years. And
so a normal computer just wouldn't be able to do it.
And so there's I think Joe Rogan spoke about it on his podcast. He was talking about it, and I've heard it said by different people. If they've said, for it to pull its answers, it's pulled them from dimensions that we don't actually know exist.
Jesus.
And you're like, what?
This is where my mind starts.
It's got to pull on answers from other dimensions. So Disney going down the whole multiverse theory and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. It's not a million miles off, because how else did it find its answer?
That's another going back.
Think of it like this. I always think to myself. So the Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
It's a theory, but let's say it happened. It had to happen somewhere, and that was in another dimension. Because you can't say the Big Bang Theory happened over there, because there wasn't a thing. So the Big Bang had to have happened somewhere, and that was probably in another dimension.
Yeah. It's just insane. Insane. And
I feel like instead of beers, we should have had just
some weed.
Load of weed and have this conversation.
Really deep.
And we'd have been
oh my God. Yeah.
We'd have all been hiding behind the sofa at the end of it.
Just take some psychedelics and just cry.
Yeah.
It's scary though.
Yeah.
The whole dimension thing, multiple dimensions.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely got to be.
There is part of it that I'm like, there must be.
Yeah. Yeah.
There must be.
They say, what's the theory about us all being simulation theory?
Oh yeah.
They say there's as much chance of us being in a simulation as there isn't.
Yeah.
Have
you ever heard of something called Boots Void? It's part of space.
Void.
So if you look up Boots Void, it's a part of space that is basically devoid of anything. It's just black. There's a couple of little galaxies and stuff.
Yeah.
They've made a picture of the universe, and then there's just this big almost like a chicken nugget shaped bit of blackness.
Yeah.
And they reckon that if the simulation theory was real, the computing power it would take would be this X amount of numbers of space, and apparently that space is the exact same size as Boots Void, the actual void in space in the universe. So where they're saying that this big computer could exist or whatever.
Oh my God!
It's insane.
Yeah, because I hear
it's mind melting
recently as well that they've said the human DNA strand where they've looked at it, it's actually sort of built the same way as computer code.
Okay.
Yeah,
and you go right. So it adds kind of credence to this kind of whole simulation thing, which I think again Elon Musk is I think he's said he believes we are in a simulation, and you're like, well, he's a clever guy, and. But it's not that I'm going to follow.
It's a weird one, though, isn't it? Because whether we are or whether we aren't, right now we still got to pay our bills and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It changes nothing to us.
But don't you? I love winding my missus up with it sometimes. I says, you do not know, Catherine. I says, you could just be somebody that someone's controlling. Yeah. You're an avatar or this, that, and the other. And then she goes, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. I don't. But
do you ever get main character syndrome?
No.
Do you not?
No.
I do quite a lot.
Do you?
Yeah.
Really?
Because I'm you could just have been put here just to You're,
yeah.
do you know what I mean?
I
Like,
live
you might
life as
you
a
might
main
not be
character.
real, and
Yeah.
yeah,
What do they call them again? NPCs.
NPC,
Yeah,
Non-playable characters.
So, like,
Everyone's just a non-playable character, but
and
me.
what's the film with Ryan Reynolds in it? Free Guy. Have you watched that?
Free Guy.
Free
No, I haven't
Guy,
seen that,
where
no.
he's a player in a computer game. He's an NPC.
Oh, okay.
And he breaks out of the game. He's
Oh,
like, you know, I
right.
don't want to be an NPC anymore. He breaks out of the game, and then the real world are watching his story, like he's broke from it.
Is this a newish film?
No, I think it's a couple of years old, but it's worth a watch.
I'm
It's
gonna have to
like
look at this.
just to open up that
A bit like
kind of thing.
what was the one with Jim Carrey? Where he was like
Truman
Truman
Show.
Yeah, a
Truman
little
Show,
bit like
yeah,
that.
yeah. But yeah, anything like that, I just love it. I think it could be.
It makes my brain hurt. But then it's like, you know, but then how do you explain deja vu?
Yeah.
It's a glitch.
Such a small thing.
We're just glitched.
Yeah.
We're just
Well, the
glitching.
Matrix like showed that perfectly.
Yeah,
didn't it?
yeah, yeah.
The black
Yeah.
cat walking past.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah,
And the black cat walks past. Was it like more than once or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need
That's
to watch
when
that
you
film
know.
again.
That's when you know. Was it? That was when you know the agents.
The
are coming.
agents are coming or
Yeah,
something.
But that was
yeah.
like they called that a glitch in the Matrix.
Yeah.
Which is what we now call it.
Yeah.
It's, it's just...
Yeah. But I do
Fascinating.
like anything. I don't disbelieve anything. I just find it intriguing. And I just think in this next 10 years, again, so the size of space and everything else, I'm a massive believer in this whole alien kind of, you know.
Talking of aliens, like that was another point I was going to get onto. Like a theory I always wanted to believe, but my theory's kind of changed now the more I've kind of learnt about it, is the pyramids.
Yeah.
The pyramids fascinate me so
Yeah.
much.
Have you been?
No,
No,
I
I've
really
never
wanted
been.
to go. We
Yeah.
went to Egypt last year, year before. Either way, we went to Egypt, me and the missus, and we were going to try and get a flight out
Yeah.
to Giza.
Yeah.
We just didn't get a chance. But they're really fast. I've heard kind of mixed reviews of people going.
Yeah, yeah.
But I know it's a bit of a shithole.
It's just like a bucket list thing, though, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, but I want to go just to see it in person.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to go inside the chambers, excuse me. But it just fascinates me because I do not for 1 second believe that was built by slaves.
Well, the man hours that
I
went
do not
into
believe
and
it because the maths does
Yeah,
not math.
yeah, yeah.
It just does not math. I do not believe that was the case. So there's like multiple theories, and the theory I believed years ago was the ancient alien theory.
Yeah.
So have you seen Prometheus?
Yes.
So that, I was like, well, there must be life on other planets. 100% must be life on other planets. And my theory was, well, I believe that this, again, connects all different religions, because like, when you look at all different religions, they follow very similar stories.
Yeah.
They follow similar stories.
Yeah.
And these deities that people follow, they're similar from Christianity to Islam to
it's like,
Hinduism.
how could they all be so close?
Yeah,
Yeah,
how can
yeah.
all these religions from all over the world...
They all believe in a greater, higher kind
so
of...
then I thought, oh, right, okay, well, and I started getting into all this ancient alien stuff. And it's like, well, okay, maybe there was creatures that came from above.
Yeah.
Because these spaceships are depicted in Mayan
Yeah, and the
languages
hieroglyphs
and this
and-
hieroglyphs
yeah.
and whatever. So it's like there must have been some sort of higher powered people. And it might not have been higher powered people. It might not have been gods. It could have been people with technology.
Yeah.
Technology, all of a sudden, they're like, oh, whoa,
Yeah.
he's got superpowers. He's got all this, you know, what is this? He's a god. So then my theory became of, okay, yeah, they must have come down and then helped humans build all this and whatever else. And yeah, and I wanted to believe that so much, like, yeah, that must have existed. But my theory's kind of changed now.
Yeah.
And in fact, one person to speak to is Al, because he's massively into the ancient
All right,
Egyptian
okay.
and ancient civilization theory.
Yeah.
So then I started getting to
He's even got some artifacts as well.
Really cool. We'll get onto that, but he'll love the fact we're talking about this because I want to get him on and talk about conspiracies for so long. But yeah, ancient civilization. I don't know if you've heard of the ancient civilization
Is this where we think we get to a point in like a technology kind of thing, and then we get wiped out, and then it kind of builds
exactly
again?
that.
Yeah.
So 12,000 or so years, or 11,000 and something years ago, so almost 12,000 years ago. And this actually happened. There was a massive global disaster that happened. It was, mine's completely gone now. What was it called? That's going to bug me. It's on the tip of our tongue.
Carry on and I'll Google it.
Google it, yeah, Google it. We need a Jamie here from Rogan. It's going to come to me, but yeah. Global disaster,
Yeah.
asteroids hit Earth, and this did happen. This has all been documented. It basically, the world went into essentially a meltdown.
The Younger Dryas period.
Younger Dryas period.
That's not the disaster, though. That's just like the...
That was the period.
Period of time.
That was the
Right,
period
okay,
of time.
yeah.
So it was the Younger Dryas period, and essentially the Earth was pummeled with asteroids. And essentially,
this is when
Earth passes through.
600 people... Well, there was only 600 people left on the Earth, is that right?
Yeah, there's theories of what happened. So
Yeah,
essentially, the theory is that civilizations existed, because currently archaeologists and everything like that say that modern civilization started X amount of years ago. Back 12,000 years ago, it had only been hunter-gatherers.
Yeah.
And civilization has only really happened after that, as like, you know, agriculture has come in and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Obviously, our civilizations have grown, and then we've become what we have, right? But 12,000 years ago, we were just hunter-gatherers.
Yeah.
That's the theory. And that's what, you know, every book, whatever, that's what is told. But the theory of the ancient civilizations is that, and I am going to be butchering this a bit, I'm not an expert. This is just something I'm really intrigued by, that civilizations existed way before this 12,000 years ago. So these are the people.
Well, it was advanced civilizations.
They were advanced civilizations.
Yeah.
They built the pyramids. They built all these different artifacts. You look at, there's all sorts of places popping up. There's Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. If you look that up, this site is over 12,000 years old, and it's so complex.
Yeah.
Like, how did a hunter-gatherer, you know, how did they build something like this? In the precision in what they've built is so in-depth. Like, how?
Yeah.
Like, everything is so precise. You look at the pyramids, everything is so precise. And, you know, they say, oh, yeah, it was built by slaves. They just had certain tools.
Yeah.
No way in hell.
But is it the Great Pyramid of Giza that's built exactly on like the axis point for like?
Yeah, and it's a star formation
Yeah.
of what the star formation would have been then. So the theory is that the advanced civilizations that existed, they were advanced in a way not like us, essentially. They used astronomy a hell of a lot compared to us. And like, you know, it's almost like you take, I'm trying to explain it, like you could take the red pill and go this way, you could get the blue pill and go that way. And it's like, obviously our civilization has gone this way, and we've moved towards essentially using fossil fuels and using whatever else to get to where we are now.
Like taking a step back almost.
Yeah, well, not necessarily a step back. We've taken a step this way.
Well, no,
whereas...
people do say that we've taken the older way of doing things.
Yeah.
You know, it's like with Tesla, you know, Tesla and...
Oh, yeah.
Supposedly, if we'd have listened to Tesla, we'd have been way more advanced.
Way more advanced,
because he had this like wireless electricity.
Wireless, yeah.
Because
it was JP Morgan.
JP Morgan had all copper.
The copper, and he was back in Edison, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So that's why we ended up kind of moving that way.
We could have
rather
actually
than
been
this
way
way.
more advanced.
Yeah. So essentially, these civilizations would have been so advanced, but they used astronomy and other things, and they followed those methods, and their technology was way different. We'd look at it as way more advanced than ours, but they might look at our technology and think of that as advanced. So essentially, they got to a point where they could build all these civilizations, build the pyramids, build all these different places around Earth. But then, of course, multiple asteroids hit, everything gets wiped out.
Yeah.
All history gets wiped out. A few people survive. The people that are going to survive, that can live off of Earth, are the hunter-gatherers, aren't they? Think about it. Like, you think if
Restart
asteroids
again.
hit right now,
We'd be all
the
over.
internet's
Yeah.
gone.
It'd be all the preppers.
Electric's gone. Yeah. It's people that,
Yeah.
these people that live on remote islands that live off of Earth and that's it, they're probably going to be the ones that survive, not us.
Yeah.
We wouldn't survive.
I can't
it.
remember if it was either Albert Einstein or Robert Oppenheimer said the Third World War will be fought
With sticks and
with
stones.
with nuclear weapons.
Nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
And
And
then
the Fourth World War
Yes,
will be
yeah.
fought with
Sticks
sticks
and
and
stones,
stones.
Going
Yeah,
back to
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
the beginning again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then that whole theory fascinates me. And then, in fact, next time you see Al,
Yeah.
ask him about it because he'll get into it.
Yeah.
But he's got a really cool artifact.
Has he?
Because he's got this plate.
It's a bowl,
I,
isn't it?
I hope he doesn't mind me talking about this, but he's got this bowl and he brought it in and it's over 5,000 years
Really?
old, right? From the time of, when apparently the pyramids were built and whatever else. But the precision of how this bowl is built is from a single piece of
Perfectly
granite.
smooth.
And granite is the second hardest substance, I think.
Something like that,
that. And it's perfectly
Really?
machined. It's perfectly cylindrical. Like, it's
like it's been spun on a diamond cutting machine or a
yeah.
lathe. Or, you know
But
what I mean?
how did they create this when they only had hammers and chisels, apparently?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but no, that can't be the answer. Because there's one theory in the whole ancient civilization and the pyramids, circling back to that. But they found X amount of vases. I think it was like something like 5,000 vases.
Yeah.
Like typical vase with handles,
Yeah.
right? But they are one piece. So it's the full granite vase with the handles on it. And that is essentially all one piece
Jesus.
of granite. And they found something like 5,000. I might be getting the numbers mixed up, but they found X amount. Each one of them, to the 1,000th of an inch, are the
Weird.
same dimensions. I'm sorry, but like, how has someone taken a hammer and chisel? And then they're like, oh no, they used like turning
Yeah.
stones and whatever to carve them. They've got handles on. How did you do that?
Yeah.
It's just, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
But I just, that.
One thing, like, I don't like being a skeptic, but one thing I always think to myself is they did have a lot of time. they had no TV. They had nothing to do.
Where are you going? I'm just going to go and carve a vase in the garage.
Yeah.
You're gonna be- I'll be-
It's like Stonehenge. They go, oh, how did they lift them stones that high? And I think to myself, I'm like, well, they had nothing
They had a lot
else.
of time to
They had
sit around and scratch their heads
They had
over
nothing
it.
else to do. You know?
Yeah, but that's the other thing, like Stonehenge and stuff like that. It's all to do with the summer solstice and everything like that. The way everything's positioned.
Yeah.
The sun lines perfectly in line
Yeah.
with like the
Well,
same
it's also
formations
actually, I
and
think it's
whatever else.
Stonehenge is also, it's not an amphitheatre, but basically it's Stonehenge is made so that if you stand in the middle of it and talk, your voice is raised 4 decibels louder to the people standing around the outside.
Right.
So they reckon they could have used it to have like performances and
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
that.
But then how did they get so much precision?
Basically,
back
what you're
then?
saying, it was like the world's first bass bin.
Yeah,
And it just happened.
basically,
That's what it was all
yeah.
about. Someone beatboxing in the middle of Stonehenge. Listen to this, it sounds amazing.
So just picture them all of them in their tunics, like.
Ancient civilization that was just built around beatbox.
Do you ever-
We did not know it.
Have you ever watched a show called Plebs?
Plebs, I've seen.
Oh,
I've
so
seen.
I
maybe-
saw bits
Yeah,
of it
they like
years
wear the
ago.
togas and
It's
stuff.
set in the
yeah.
Roman times,
Yeah.
but they're like they live like today's like
Yeah. It's like modernised, but
Right.
not.
yeah,
Yeah. That's it. It's a
like they've
funny
all got
show.
like English accents and like Brummie accents or Manchester accents.
They actually called them plebs. Did you know that?
yeah, it just means commoners.
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
it?
commoners, plebs. I never knew that up until like, I think it was maybe up until I watched bits of that show. But yeah, all that, it just boggles
Yeah,
my mind.
yeah.
If you watch a show called Ancient Apocalypse,
yeah.
I'll send you the link to it. It's on
I think
Netflix.
I might have seen a couple before.
Watch
but
that.
Yeah, I can go down
It's-
the rabbit hole with that.
Honestly, I kept going on about it to my missus and a load of other people. Then I was like, just watch this, and I got her to watch it. Literally, episode in, she was just like,
Yeah.
I was like, I know.
That's why I need to get my missus into to believe in a bit more of what I believe in sometimes, because she's very just like matter of fact
yeah.
now. were here once, and space is space.
I don't
and
like
this
it.
is
You know,
this
when
is
people are just like, so, no, that's not true.
Yeah.
That's not real.
What-
This, that one.
What are your thoughts on like the paranormal?
paranormal. Okay, so I've got a really interesting.
'Cause I'm big into the paranormal.
Okay, so really probably not had any major thoughts in and around it
Yeah.
for a long time. But my dad used to work down the pit for 27 years.
Okay.
And I won't expand on some of his stories, but basically, like, you know, saying what some guys had seen and this, that, and the other. So it took me until, what would have been? It'd be 2015, 2015. And I had my first paranormal experience.
Okay.
And we were driving from our house on Christmas Eve to go out for a meal on Christmas Day. And we had Catherine's dad in the back of the car, me and Catherine in the front of the car, and we were driving to this restaurant in Matlock. So we were driving along, just chatting, and we went down into a hollow on a road that leads from where we are, it's a Brackenfield road, through Tansley. And I just chatting to my missus, corner of my eye, going, yeah, blah, blah, you know, we get there. And I looked up, and the first thing I said is, what's he doing? Because someone was crossing the road in front of me. And I braked in the bottom of this hollow, and he disappeared. And then he reappeared at the left wing of the car and walked through a wall. And it was only then I saw his detail, and it was a hood, cloak, hood, disappeared into a wall. And I was like, so I'm getting chills now thinking about it, because I was 40.
Giving me the chills.
Did anyone-
We're all alone in a...
2016.
Who were you
so
with? Who were you with?
I'm going, was that 8 years ago?
Did you say just your missus at
Yeah,
the time?
missus in the front.
Did she see anything?
So this is where I'm going.
Right, okay.
So I just turned to my missus and went, did you see that? And she went, a man in a hood. And I went, yeah. And I'm getting it now, and the chills, I was like, oh my God. So I think it was a monk. Catherine said she thought it was a monk. And literally, we got to the restaurant car park, and I rang my dad, I rang my brother, I rang my auntie. Catherine's dad was in the back, none aware, but we were absolutely like, oh my God, to both see it. We felt privileged and like 40 years old, let's say, or pushing 40 years old. I'd never seen anything in my life until that point. And I was just like, oh my God, we've seen a ghost. And I'd heard about ghost stories on certain roads that had been built. And I know that there was a pilgrimage route that is close by, but never in that kind of area. But there was a pilgrimage route that ran to the north. And it was one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had.
It's a really random question. Could you see his feet or anything below his knees?
No, I didn't. No,
really
so you're thinking of like the original floating ghost kind of.
No. I was thinking. There's, no, not that. No, there's a thing that they talk about where these things walk old paths, and if those roads have been built on top of,
Right.
there's stories of like Roman soldiers walking along old roads in like York,
Right.
and they can't be seen from the knee down, and it's because they're walking on
the
It was-
path
a high.
beneath.
Yeah, they're walking on the lower road. Yeah.
It was so strange because again, you know, like if you're walking and you had like a kind of bob to your walk or whatever, it was very floaty,
right,
like
yeah,
in like archetypical kind of
Yeah.
ghost thing. But for it to disappear
The way it did.
and then reappear just by the wall and
yeah.
then disappear into the wall, and we were both like, "Did you see that?"
Have
Yeah,
you ever
we saw
heard
that.
of stone tape theory?
No.
So
no.
it's the theory that old buildings and old materials can record.
Called memory, isn't it?
Yeah, record if an event kind of gives off enough energy,
Yeah.
like a murder or something like that, or a death. It can record it in the walls of like it has to have like a type of iron in the walls or something like that, and then under certain circumstances it can replay it back. It's obviously massively like debated, and
Yeah.
a lot of people say it's bullshit, but.
But then we could actually completely circle back with this if we really want
That's
to
our
go.
last episode.
No, to what we were just talking about simulation theory.
Yeah. Yeah.
What if, like, you know, these ghosts, because I can be scared, you know my feelings about ghosts and paranormal and whatever else. I can be very skeptical. Like, there's part of me that kind of wants to believe it, and I do believe in energies.
Yeah. Yeah.
I believe we do give off energies positive. It's you know, you walk into a room and there's negative energy in the room, you can almost feel
Well,
it.
you can feel if someone's looking at you from across the room.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
feel the
You can
eyes
feel-
on you.
Yeah.
That's an energy.
Yeah.
So I do believe that. But yeah, going back to simulation, what? Because I just clicked then, like, what if? they are just like these memories are just part of the simulation that
Yeah,
are just
yeah.
replaying.
Yeah.
But
And it
Just
almost,
overlap.
you know, like when
they're
you get
overlapping over it.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's what
you know
I've
when you
thought
get a
about it.
plasma
Think-
TV back
yeah.
in the day, when the screen used to print. We were
Yeah,
talking about it the other day.
Yeah.
The screen used to print, and like you would see like the image
Yeah.
of this whatever you were watching still there. It's almost like that is happening
Yeah.
in life.
See, I've never
It-
had anything happen really, but I've always wanted to. But then
yeah.
I'm like, actually, if it happened, I don't
Yeah.
know if I'd
Yeah.
I'd still think the same. Did you see the clip from my last episode when we were downstairs?
No.
So we had a
if
bottle.
anyone watches this,
Yeah.
I want you to go onto our Instagram.
Because I think it's in the video. It'll be in the
Right.
pod.
Was it on our story?
It'll
Or
be
was
in
it
the,
on
it was
our...
on our story. It was on the. We put it on the story because I
Yeah,
filmed.
yeah.
I filmed the computer screen, but
Yeah.
also it should be.
Well,
in the episode
add
as
a
well.
clip of it into this.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were sitting doing the podcast
Yeah,
downstairs,
and
weren't we?
one of our guests we had on had one of these bottles, and it was empty. And obviously, I know they're really light, and it doesn't take a lot to knock one over. But it was on the floor, and it literally. I'll show you after this, but it literally just all of a sudden it was just sat there, and then it just went, and then fell over.
Yeah.
And it was nowhere near the bottle was like over here.
Yeah,
Like,
it wasn't
compared to
like
him,
he wasn't
the
moving his
doors
legs.
wasn't open.
The only thing I can think is the fan above the door.
Yeah. So it's.
But
caused that
like
little
it was
kind
the way that it started moving it, and
It
I was
just
like,
literally
that's not
went-
wind. That's not wind. Yeah, wind would have just gone.
of- Yeah. Oh,
And
so
then it
someone
fell.
putting a. And like,
Yeah, it all-
It was a little bit like, oh.
So
But then Brad saw it and he was like, "Oh yeah, when we had builders here, like when they were first building the place, apparently one of them used to stay late every night, and then he came in one day and he was like, I'm not staying late anymore." And he,
Well, interestingly, so there's a guy who used to work in the trim shop downstairs, Paul,
Yeah.
and Paul, and I didn't disbelieve him when he said he professed to know, like energies in the building. There's definitely something in this place. So, again, like that.
if anybody, it was
for-
Paul.
For what I saw, it was totally different to what I've seen here in the building, because
Yeah.
I think we've all been kind of caught. You think someone's watching, you think, just move, or
Yeah.
But so when this building was literally, there's actually randomly just below in the storage unit, there's a door that's been bricked in, and before the storage had any cars in, they were still doing strip out. I was obviously on part of this project from very
can I
early
see
days.
the top corner of it there? Is
Probably,
that...
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was walking through in the evening when there was nothing, just empty building, and I saw a black shadow move across the doorway,
Yeah.
and like it made me go, "What? What was that?" But
You
but
just
it
see
was
it in the
there.
corner of your
yeah,
eye.
and it was a corner, but it was not. It wasn't like I'd ring anybody and say, "I have just seen a ghost." It
Yeah,
was
'cause
like,
it was
what did
so
what did I just see?
questionable.
So I
Yeah.
suppose it's a bit like that. So we at home we live in an old school, and we've had a couple of things where. And again, I've said to Catherine, I think it's the energy of the old building. So our living room is a old classroom, and I swear down, we've been sat in the living room before watching television, and I've heard paper falling behind me, like if you heard a
Like
piece
a
of paper
paper
drop now, you
aeroplane.
flap or something drop. I've gone like, what's that? And like my missus has heard it as well, and like, I've just genuinely said, it's probably just the house. It's like the old energy of it being a school. And it's like, it's little things like that, weird. And I don't profess to be able to pick up on it, but there's sometimes in the house, I'll just think, it feels like there's something about today. And other days there isn't.
Yeah.
And again, I can try and explain it and like quantify it to myself, because our house is a school that's split into 4 properties. And I just think sometimes the energy is going from different parts of the building.
yeah.
But I've said to Catherine, it feels like doesn't feel like a dark energy, because I think a school, a place of learning, it's got a lot
It's
of
not-
memories for people. But it just feels sometimes that you think, and again, you say you feel it when you walk into a room if there's an energy. Sometimes I just kind of go, feels a bit different today. Something feels a bit weird.
I love
stuff like
that. I feel like I'm bigger into paranormal than I am into conspiracies, to be fair.
I'm the other way
always
around.
listening to podcasts about paranormal.
See, I prefer to believe in something that I can kind of see.
It's tangible.
Or yeah.
I almost like wish when we were driving on that Brackenfield road that I had like a dash cam. And we could have played it back and gone, we didn't both just make up what we saw. Like, because it would be.
Thing is,
just
I
amazing.
don't disbelieve people that tell me, like, unless they're like, they're always bullshitting
If they've seen
about
something,
stuff.
they've seen something.
Yeah.
I don't-
Whether it is a ghost,
Yeah.
they still saw something and they can't explain it.
Yeah.
My neighbours now who live in another part of the school, it's not happened there, but they used to live in a flat when they were younger in Wirksworth, and they moved out because they said it was haunted and it was scaring them. It's like, really? So one of the first things they told us when we were having a drink with your first neighbours at first, they said we were like literally in the kitchen, and we like polished off a couple of bottles of wine together. And he says, "Don't ask me why, but we both like fell asleep at the kitchen table. We drank wine, and they both woke up, and the whole room was filled with white smoke, fog, completely filled, like dense fog." And he says, and then with a click of a finger, or like literally, it cleared,
Just went.
gone.
Wow.
And he says they moved out. They were that scared of this place in Worksworth. I thought, oh my God, like I don't want to experience anything like that. He says like it's a scary experience. Whereas my experiences have felt like quite, all right, this is pretty, it's pretty cool.
So I listened to, there's a podcast, the BBC podcast called Uncanny.
Oh yeah,
Have you seen it?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I'm massively into that. So there's a TV show about it as well, like where he's done stuff.
So have you got to believe something to see it to believe it?
I've got to see. When I was younger, I've spoken to you about this. I experienced night terrors.
I experience them now.
Very bad night terrors. Like if you ask my parents about it, they will tell you that I was a nightmare. Every single night I would wake up screaming. And to this day, even though that was 25, 30 years ago, I still remember them to this day. And I had some horror. I can still remember them really. And it's one of those, you know how they say like dogs and kids can see things that we can't see as adults. Because they're almost a lot more open to it. The minds are not simpler, but there's just something that kids and dogs and stuff like that can see different things. And in the house that we live in, it's a Victorian house. It's
old, isn't it? Really
it's
old.
very old. It's 18. It's from the 1800s. I can't remember the exact year.
1880s, something like that.
1870 something. So, funnily enough, you mentioned your house is a school. Our house was. So, we had Brooklyn School, which was next to us, which is old school. And then our house was essentially the boarding area. It was, I think, initially, it was like a boarding school, so you notice in all the different rooms, you can see the joists of where it would have been separate rooms, and there'd have been, obviously, boarding kids living there. Then it became the headmaster's house, so that's where the headmaster stayed. And then eventually it was derelict, blah, blah, and then it became a house. And I used to see a lot of things in that house as a kid.
Really?
But again, most of it was always at night. I used to sleepwalk and whatever, and it chills me, like, it freaks me out a little bit.
Yeah.
But again, I'm like, now coming to an adult, I'm like, I was just hallucinating. I was a kid. I was just having nightmares. Yeah. But then at the time, I believed it. I believed it. Like, it was scary. I think there was one point I almost walked out of the house, sleepwalking. Well, Mum caught me walking out, but I always felt like I was trying to run from something in the house.
Right.
That's what I always felt. I remember I'd be panting, trying to run away.
Maybe you were, and you've just blocked it out.
Yeah, genuinely. I just felt like I was constantly running from something. And I always had that thing, you know, the kind of age-old saying when you're going upstairs, you switch your lights on, you run upstairs to try and get away from the monsters downstairs. That's what I felt like. I was always remember being in my landing and there being a shadowy figure, and I'm always trying to run away from it.
Really?
And that's all I remember. But yeah, it's one of those, as I've come into adult life, I'm like, as I've grown older, I went through a stage of, I don't believe any of that. It's all a load of bollocks. Conspiracies, all a load of bollocks. And then as I've got older and older, the more I'm starting to become open to it all again. But yeah, I'm still a bit dubious about the whole paranormal thing. And I don't think, you know how typically people think ghosts are scary, almost evil,
or
and
nasty
this.
Or whatever.
I don't think that is the case. If it
I
is
think
true,
they can be both.
I think they can be both.
You can be everything. Like you said, the school has a good energy.
Yeah. You can have good
Still
energies, bad
creepy,
energies. Yeah, creepy.
Yeah.
But in general, most of it isn't bad. It's just almost trapped souls.
Yeah.
That are still here. But yeah, the whole energy thing, I do believe that, you know, once you pass on, that your soul does leave your body, and your body is just a vessel. That's all we're on earth to do, but there is a lot more.
I think, like, going back, like, obviously Brian Cox kind of really popularised, didn't he, the whole kind of, you know, the space thing. It made it really buoy it into modern culture, and I love that he did that. And I think he
did
this documentary, and it was one of his things where we were talking about energy and the fact it cannot be destroyed.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I've kind of, you know, from losing my mum at an early age, I've kind of thought, like, you know, there's that energy left behind, and like they're always kind of with you. And I do think I'm a big believer. He says energy cannot be destroyed; it has to change
Just
from one form
transfers to
to
something
another.
else, yeah.
So, like you said, I think we're very much a vessel, but our energy that we've had and
Still
we're here,
remains.
it's got to
Still
remain.
remains.
You know, you've left
Well,
this.
like you just talking about your mum, losing your mum. Recently, you know, my aunt recently, she climbed Kilimanjaro.
Yeah,
Amazing feat, well proud of her. But she did it to raise money for Heart Failure Foundation. I can't remember the exact charity, but and it was all because we lost our grandma, so her
Yeah.
mum. We lost her last 2 years ago now. I can't believe it's been 2 years. But yeah, it's been like 2 years now, and she was a very kind human being, very kind, very good energy. And my aunt did this kind of climb for her, and she took up, and I really like this, I got really emotional when she was talking about it, but she got a rock, which she bought it from the UK somewhere, and on there was a little message for mum, saying mum, blah, blah, whatever it said on it. And what she wanted to do was take it to Kilimanjaro, the highest point that she can get to, as close to heaven as you can get, essentially,
it's nice.
and place it there at the peak when she gets to the top. And she was saying that on her way up, I'm going to butcher this a little bit, so sorry, Porgy, for if you're watching this, and yeah, but yeah, she was taking it up, and on the climb up, obviously people are getting very teary and whatever as they're climbing up, because it's a hard feat. It's 7
Yeah.
days back and forth
Yeah.
of climbing to the top. It is a long
trek,
haul
that,
trek,
yeah.
and I think someone was talking to my aunt, and she said, "You're a really strong woman. Like, fair play for what you're doing. Like, well, you're doing really well." And my aunt stopped and goes, "No, I'm not a strong person. I'm doing this, but my mum was strong. She went through this, and this, and she was a strong person."
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, without going into detail, my granddad, whatever, my granddad's in a home at the minute, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, bear in mind, he never calls. He doesn't really have use of his phone anymore.
Yeah.
My aunt's phone starts ringing, and she doesn't have reception out there. All of a sudden, she had reception,
Yeah.
and the phone starts ringing. It's my granddad, and normally he's suffering with Alzheimer's, so it's not always the best. But he called up just
On
to
that
check in.
moment.
I hope you're okay.
Yeah.
That was it. And then it's like, was that because she was talking about
Yeah. Yeah.
our grandma? And then all of a sudden, that energy, it's almost like she's there in presence, and she's like, almost like not directly giving a message to my granddad, just to say, "Oh, I
Yeah.
hope you're okay."
Yeah.
That was it. And he never calls to say that.
Yeah.
He never ever does that. And I was like, holy shit, that's so weird.
Yeah.
Like, just, and it was even like down to, and it was the same for me. So, because you mentioned losing your mum, that I felt the same almost after losing my grandma, because we were really close. I felt that kind of, I started believing in the whole energy thing a
Yeah.
lot more, and that the body being a vessel, and
Yeah.
Hinduism. I've grown up a Hindu, but I'm not religious.
yeah.
I don't practice the
Yeah.
religion. My family do, but I do know a lot about the religion. And the whole idea is, again, is exactly that. Our body's just a vessel, and we're an energy, essentially. It's
Yeah.
our soul. And again, I started believing that after she passed. It's almost like everything lined up perfectly, like even down to a funeral day. Obviously, to start off with, it's very kind of morbid, it's sad, and this, that. And we went to the crematorium, did everything we needed to do. Obviously, the moods, you know what it's like, and it's not great. But then we then went to essentially the wake, which was at the Hindu temple. And all of a sudden, the sun comes out.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful day. Everyone, all of a sudden, the moods just pick up. Everyone's happy, because
Yeah.
everyone's then talking about the life she had, and like talking about her and this, that, and all of it. And the sun's out, and it's like, you're out there, you're watching us,
Yeah,
and you're like, it's
yeah.
almost like, yeah, it's so weird. It's so weird. But yeah, the whole energy thing, I do believe, like I say, that then does connect to the whole paranormal thing. And
yeah.
I do, there must be some sort of connection. That's why I'm starting to get a bit more open to it. Like, you used to talk about it years ago. I'd be like, it's a load of shit. It's this, that. I don't believe that. Fucking ghosts? No. But now I'm like, actually, yeah, you know what? I don't think there's ghosts. I don't think it's them ghouls flying around, like, trying to scare us. I don't think it's that. But there is, like we were talking about, there's memories. There's energies in the building. And I think that is true. Like, yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
So fascinating. But yeah, who thought we'd be talking about
I know,
conspiracies and this, that for this long?
Aliens.
Are we actually going to talk about your car club?
We can talk about car club.
You know,
we can
I keep looking at this box on the table.
talk about car history and everything else.
In my head, I keep looking at that box and like, smoky bacon, you know, because of the colour. I think I'm just really hungry.
Like a bag of frazzles.
Yeah.
See, we could actually get onto conspiracies about that as well, like dimensions, time travel.
Oh, yeah.
Well, this,
Cox
You're
actually
right,
mentioned-
I have actually been trying to relate. Like, I was going to like segue. Talking of time travel, this is a time machine.
or randomly, I bought, like, I was thinking about from sort of history of cars, but I like the fact we've not really gone into it, which is great. But what intrigues me about that is, I think it was Back to the Future 2 where they would set the time circuits to 2015 and they were like flying cars.
Yeah.
And like,
Because that was the thing, wasn't it? When I was a kid,
yeah.
like,
yeah,
it was.
yeah,
Oh,
like,
yeah, we'll
I
have
remember
them one
watching
day.
Tomorrow's World when I was younger, and they get this view of the future that we're going to be.
And it was flying cars.
Yeah, and there were
was it?
like flying cars involved, and you think, oh my god, it's going to be amazing. And
The dangers. We can't even like make a self-driving car. The dangers of like
and
flying
here we
cars.
are in an old building, a Rolls Royce building, and we're trying to preserve.
Trying to keep the
Full
old
of-
cars
full of-
alive.
Full of
full of
we're not
combustion
full of
engines.
flying cars. We can't even deal with cruise control.
So what? I was just going to say, what have you got? What's
Well, randomly, I think we touched on it, but like from a car perspective at the start of the journey for me, it was all about, for me, it was there to deal with grief when I
Okay.
lost my mum at such an early age.
Yeah.
And it was just around the time when, like, the Cannonball Run was,
Yeah.
you know, a thing, and
Yeah.
and I found sort of my first sort of replacement, really, if you like. 'Cause my mum, so every Friday we used to go to the post office, and if I'd been good in the week, she used to buy me a
you a
Matchbox car. And that was like my pocket money
that one
kind
of
of
the
thing.
the little
like,
Lamborghini
yeah,
is?
exactly, Matchbox car.
Is that a Countach?
It is a Countach, yeah. And that started this like car collection. But then when I lost my mum, it kind of it never stopped. It was like, oh, I need to buy cars. I need to fill
that's
my
what you did.
fill my windowsill, and it was like almost like a thing that I used to kind of deal with grief. So
It's almost keeping that memory
yeah,
going.
yeah, it's like
because
it
that
was
was the
such
good
a
memory of you going
such a
every
strong,
Friday.
Exactly, we used to walk up the road when she still used to do like a posting things out on a Friday, and I think like who does that now? Like again, with internet, we're emailing this, but she used to go and then do a posting from the post office and like get yourself a Matchbox car, and then it progressed to like the 1/18th models on the windowsill.
Yeah.
And I just remember it being like. And so I still collect 1/18th to this day. And it's only through like soul searching and unpicking my past in many ways that I actually go, oh shit, that's what I used to do. I used to buy model cars because it was such a relatable thing to what I used to do with my mum, and still collecting them. And I think I've said to my wife, and my wife said to me, like, doesn't matter how many model cars you have on your garage wall, it still won't replace what you lost. And it's such a strange thing, but I still do it. And I think I spoke to you about another guy we know where you get obsessed about doing something, and I become obsessed. Like, I need to fill my shelves to feel complete, but I know it won't complete me.
You'll never complete it.
And it's
because you'll
such
never
a
finish.
strange thing. So for me, the whole car thing, it's such a strong subject that it's not just like, oh, I'm a car enthusiast. It's built into something far deeper. So when people actually, you get to the root of it, and people kind of, you know, oh yeah, he likes his cars, he gets it. So for me, it's like, it is part of me. I was 10 years old when I lost my mum, and and I always say, so at the time, my dad did the most natural thing he thought to help two young boys, me being 10, my brother being 7, and our neighbour about 3 doors down offered my dad 2 motorbikes. They were Camino mopeds. They weren't made for fields, but I think my dad did what he thought was the best at the time,
Stripped them down.
and just like, let's get you out in the fields. And I remember like it was almost like pushing grief under the carpet, but a freeing kind of thing to be into motorbikes at 11, riding around in fields, feeling free, and like cars and bikes. And growing up, it's just been such a big part of my life that, again, because we do that surface chat and we don't get under kind of what sparked your interest then. It's like from an early age, my dad like, come in the shed, I'm going to strip a carb down, come and watch what I'm doing on these motorbikes or whatever. So
well, we've been chatting, since we've been here for the last year, and we're always getting on to all sorts of random topics.
Yeah.
And we didn't know that about
We didn't
it
know
up
that,
until now, and it makes sense. But then also going back to what your dad did and trying to almost take your mind off it, give you a distraction of getting into cars. And we were talking about it with Alex earlier. It wasn't necessarily cars, but it was sports. Because, again, like, to kind of get away from everything, that distraction of doing something, it helps you focus on that one thing. And it's not a bad way of dealing with grief or anything else.
No.
But it is a good distraction to have.
That's, like, as much as I like cars as well, my thing is like being creative. And it like helps me deal with like anxiety and depression and stuff like that. Is I have to always be doing something that's eventually gonna go out. So like this podcast, like the YouTube videos, like I do it because it's a distraction from everything else. Do
you find something like just to keep your mind occupied and you can lose yourself?
I mean, I
in
love
it?
doing it. I've always loved doing
Yeah.
it. But when I'm in times of like crisis, that's when I'm like,
I need someone to
being the most
concentrate
creative,
Yeah.
Hence why I made music and all that kind of stuff, because I'm like, I need a project. To keep, and I've always had this thing where like I have to put it out there to show people. I don't know why. I always feel like I'm wasting my time if I'm not showing someone.
If you're just doing it for yourself.
If I'm just doing it for myself, I'm just like, I'm just bored now.
Yeah.
But like if it's like, I'm going to do this and I want to put it out, and I don't care if anyone likes it, but I just want to make sure it goes out there. And it's like official kind of thing.
Well, people see it. It's almost like...
It's that validation.
It's that validation.
Yeah.
Validation of like, I've done this. Now I can move on to the next thing.
That's it,
Yeah. No, that's a fair point.
Yeah, it's a funny one.
So then you got into cars, your dad got you into motorbikes first.
Yeah, so I think the first thing, obviously, because I've been riding field bikes since I was like, 10, 11 when we lost my mum. And then my natural first thing was like, I want a motorbike for the road when I was 16. And I think my granddad, who passed away at a similar time, had left some, I say inheritance, it was like £800 or something, but it paid for my first...
Big money back then.
Paid for my first motorbike at the time, like Kawasaki AR50 at the time. So it was just naturally like, oh my God, the first thing I'm going to do is get on the road as soon as I can, ride a bike. So I went down that kind of route, bikes, but the poster cars were always like, the Ferrari F40 and a great big kind of lengthy poster across the wall. Again, the Countach. And for me, there was a point when like that's it, almost cars kind of like bikes have always been like, I've got a couple of bikes in the garage at home. My dad's got 20 bikes still. Wow. He's a biker through and through. Yeah. But there was a point where there was a guy that had got some mining compensation who local in the village, and he bought a Ferrari 308 GTB, and he stored it in a garage. It was like an asbestos garage with some kind of cracked windows. He stored it next to my auntie's house.
Right.
And I always remember like literally going to my auntie's because I knew that I could get through the fence, I could go through some long overgrown grass, I could stand on a breeze block and I could look through this window at this car and like see the little prancing horse, and then I could lie on the garage, the driveway, just to see through this like really old shitty wood, but you could see like, the rear tyres, and you could see the twin lights and the exhaust pipes, and I was like, oh my, like just totally smitten from like that age, from being massively into it. And obviously the poster cars and everything come, so it always held a really close kind of 308 GTB. And it's brilliant now I've got a 308 GTB in the club, because I managed to have that conversation with the owner of the car, and it's like, let me tell you this.
Not the same
let
one,
me
is
tell
it?
you this story and why, it'd be amazing
so
if it
cool.
was. But so it was like one of those, but it's just been a part of me from, such an early age that you can't, you
You'll
can't
not
shake it, can
it.
you?
You'll
When I
not
was
shake
when I
it.
was ill, I did a good job of trying to shake it. When I was ill, going back a couple of years, when I had this heart problem, and I was like, at the time, I think I had 3 cars, and I was like, I didn't know if I'd be coming back to work. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I'd not had a diagnosis, so I was like, I just hit a wall where I was like, I went into a bit of a, I say, a dark place. I didn't want my wife visiting me in hospital bed. I didn't want to see my daughter. I'd like literally just shut down, and all I could think was like, right, I'm done with cars. I'm going to sell this. And I did. I went through a bit of a phase. I went through literally going through my phone, deleting pictures of cars, because I just felt like, what the hell's happened, kind of thing. And I felt like I'd lost a passion for it, but I don't think it's not something that could be
You'll never
quashed.
fully
You know what I
leave,
mean?
yeah.
Not something that could be
In the
quashed.
words of Motley,
What is
You
it,
cut me open,
98
but
octane?
99 octane running through these veins. Yeah. It was a funny old time. Just, I needed to offload some crap anyway, because my wife was like, "Why have we got a car in the garage and 2 cars on the drive?" And like, so it was a kind of bit of a clear out mentally, but
So just for anyone listening,
yeah,
so you worked here full time,
yes, yeah.
and then you had these issues.
Yeah, so what happened is, and again, it's a longer story than we've got to cover, but I started for this place having spoke to the guys in the August, who is our founder, Sean. I spoke to him in the August of 2022, like knocking on the door saying, I know what you're doing down here. I'm a massive car enthusiast. I'm already working in the industry, which I'd pushed myself to sort of get into because I'd never been in the car industry. I just knew that if I could get into it, my passion had shined through. So it was the August of 22 we started speaking. Finally got a job with the guys in January of 2023, and then in February of being here 4 weeks to the day, I had a heart attack. And I was like, oh my God. So it literally, from thinking, I've created these opportunities that have got me to this point, and then all of a sudden I felt everything had been ripped, the carpet had been ripped from under me, and I was like, God, am I going to be able to go back to work? What's wrong with me? So that's when I went through this whole kind of losing the love for the whole thing. So then I think it was nearly 5 months off work sick, while they determined, obviously, there was this underlying condition that had caused it. And being in that dark place of thinking, like, what do I do? So anyway, I came back full time, trying to give it my all. And obviously, these were the days where there was water coming in through the roof, and we were still a building site, we were, in day-to-day kind of, I say day-to-day struggles with the construction company to get this thing, and it was like I was feeling quite stressed, and I was like thinking, all this has happened to me, and I've come back and I'm working at 100 miles an hour, and I was worrying about work, going home, worrying about health. And I think it just came to a part. And one of the big things, and again, it's probably like dealing with the grief and understanding when I have my dips with my mental health and I struggle. It was a kind of big wake-up call for me to actually go, you know what you need to do, Ian? And there's a book on here that I read going back to probably 2018, 2019, called Life in Half a Second, that basically, in a nutshell, is we are not here all that long. You've got like half a second in the scheme of from when time began. That's your time. And it kind of making me, and I was on this like kind of self-searching process to find out what it was that I wanted. And I was like, you know what I need? I need balance, and I'm not finding that. And I can't exercise, and I can't look after myself, and I can't be a dad to a young family, and I can't be working 5-6 days a week and carrying the stress of a job. So it was like a conscious decision to say, like, I just can't keep doing it at a pace where, I want to be here as a dad for my daughter, to see her as she grows up. I don't want to be pushing a car and then someone find me later and say, oh, look, shit, Ian's dead. So it was just a case of like, actually just slow down and kind of,
enjoy life.
do that. And it was randomly laying in the hospital bed. My wife bought me like a notebook in at one of the times where I was like literally open to her sort of visiting. She was just amazing, like, makes me a bit choked up thinking, but she like, you know, she would come in like, give me a notebook. And it was when I drawing a sketch and I was thinking, you know what I did do for my old place? I ran a car club and I'm passionate about cars and meeting people finding out about them. And I literally just did a bit of doodling. I think I even drew a tattoo that I thought, oh, if I had a tattoo, what would it be? But one of the other things was like car club and what would I do around it? Yeah. And striking that balance and knowing that time is finite, you kind of go, but it wasn't like an epiphany moment, like, shit, I must do this as well as GNC or anything else, because I didn't know at that time. You know, again, at a hospital, I was ferried from Chesterfield to Sheffield, and I'm now still under the care of the global specialist in his field that deals with this particular heart condition. But I was kind of thinking, you know what, you could do your own car club if you couldn't go back to work, and they say you're not gonna be working in the way you thought you were again. You could do your own car club. But I kind of wrote about it and like parked it in this notebook. But it was always kind of there.
Did you think of a name at the time or anything like that?
I kind of did, I think. Yeah. I think I'd kind of around the whole gold symbol and the AU, but since finding out there is a vodka brand called AU Vodka.
Oh, you found out after?
I found out after. I didn't know. I'd gone down the route of like literally designing the logo, thinking all it needs to be is the chemical symbol for gold. And the fact is that the chemical, I think it's the atomic weight of gold is 197. So there were 196.96666. So there'll be 197 members purely because it links into the precious metal theme.
Oh, interesting.
So it's a manageable amount of people that, because for me, it's the friendships you form around cars and the bonds that you make. Yeah. I thought, I don't want it to ever be this behemoth of 1,000 members that you don't know. Yeah. 200 people, well, I'm at 10%, 10% of that 200 already, and I can go through and I know what cars they drive, I know a bit about them, and I want it to be like that as a club.
You want it exclusive.
But yeah, literally, I'd paid to design the logo. We'd put the AU logo on the website. I was like, yeah, this looks great. This looks, and then I was like,
Charlie Sloth and his vodka.
I was like, oh my god! I was like, oh shit, someone else is already doing it. And I thought the worst thing you could ever do is like turn up at an event, and I know it's probably highly unlikely, but what happens if AU Vodka had a gazebo and they were doing like, and then there's AU cars and they go, are you part of each other? And you go, no, but so literally it was like, you know what, I'd done some printing, I'd spent a few quid doing it, but I thought, you know what, to rebrand now at the start of the journey is far wiser to then
stick to it.
Just kind of, you know.
Yeah, you're not advertising this globally.
No.
Is that the logo now?
Yeah, so we actually changed it. So if the logo is it's quite subtle, but with the H-gate pattern of the gearbox now, it picks up like an A and a U. And I thought, you know what, it's individual, and I always like sketch things out myself and say to my like designer, this is what I want to do, and they've interpreted what I wanted really well. So I've kind of moved away from the AU, but it still is that link to like it's the home of precious metals. We want to be a 197 member cap club, and there is a reason why. But it's so funny how the reason why was born in like a hospital bed. When you kind of go
as well, though.
Very cool story. Like we didn't know that about you. Like we spoke about.
I didn't know that about gold either. Like it was the atomic weight.
Yeah, there's another number.
That's something I've just learned.
I want to say atomic weight. It could be
what is? I was going to say, what is atomic weight?
I don't know. Right. I can't. We'll ask Jim. We'll ask Jim. Yeah.
So if you anyone watching, obviously they'll be able to. We'll add links to your Instagram and that sort of thing, so people can see. Like we always see the photography and whatever.
We'll put pictures in of bits of the book.
Especially this old bar. In fact, I saw a picture pop up earlier today, GT3, with the gold bars.
That was like a little idea I'd had that I think, it's still that
That's the one that's still got the AU logo on, isn't it?
On the wheel centre.
On the centre cap.
Yeah. But no, that was, and again, it's like things happening for reasons. I'm a big believer in that. So because I was laying in a hospital bed and I thought of this thing, I'd always liked the quite arty photography shots of cars that you kind of don't, you can't go, what car is that? You look at it and go, oh, is it that? Or is that the kind of rear arch of a Countach? And then when to be here and then meet who is now the photographer, Rich, who won't mind me saying, from Inspired Auto Imagery, I literally went back that night buzzing because Abby had a conversation, Abby works in the business, had a conversation with Rich about being on our site and talking and selling what he does as a photographer. But I went back to my missus going, you would not believe what's happened today. Like
Fell
the
perfectly.
idea for the pictures that I had in the book, there's a guy that shoots in exactly the way that I thought these images would sit in printed form.
Yeah.
She's like, oh my God, what are you going to do? And I says, well, I've got to speak to the guy. And so that's sort of
Well, his
blossomed
images
from...
do stand out. Like
Yeah.
we've seen him time and time. We've met him, and then when you bought the first
He's
edition,
always liking
book
our
round-
posts as well, so thank you.
Yeah,
Cheers,
thank you,
Rich.
Rich. Great supporter, man. So shout out to him. But yeah, we had a look through the book, and it's just so fitting.
Yeah.
Like everything, and those that don't know, so obviously for the members that join the club, so you're going to be releasing these books that will go out to them.
So my initial idea when I kind of, the whole fag packet thing was like, I want to do something no one else is doing, produce a hardback book that is collected as a sort of chronologue of the beginning of the club to however long it runs. And I thought I could do that by doing a book every month. And then I met with a guy whose business advice I'd really value just in a pub. And he was like, Iain, he says, you're not going to be able to edit and do 12 books a year. It's such a big job. And I was like, oh, well, I might cut it down to 4 then. Well, from getting just one book over the line, first of all, finally finding a publisher that said, yeah, we can print in that large format. And yes, we can do what your vision is for the book. But then one of the big things about the club is Automotive Utopia was always about what is your Automotive Utopia as a member. Because it's all right being a member of a club and the club telling you stories about the latest Aston Martin car that's been released or this, that and the other. But this is a club about the members at the heart of it. So it was always about what is your Automotive Utopia is asking a member, what is it that when you're in your absolute element with a car, where do you find yourself?
Well,
Is it on driving on a track?
Yeah.
Is it when you're driving on a mountain road? Is it when you're at home in your garage and you're tinkering? What is it? And the beautiful thing about it is everybody's story and the background stories are different. And they've been quite touching, like to literally read that because, someone's dad was into the cars, that they got into cars.
People have similar stories
just
to you.
telling your story.
Yeah.
Just that story straight away. And like people never, everyone knows, oh yeah, you're into cars, cars, that's it.
Yeah.
But like actually knowing the kind of the feelings behind it, it's so much different. So much different. That's what people don't understand.
But I think that's working for a place like this as well. And like, I think we said earlier before the video started, people need to see the faces behind GNC because we're not just a guy you say hello to when you walk in. Everyone's got stories to tell, and it is sort of, it's interesting to unpick those. And I found it for me because I've actually been writing a book for the last 3 or 4 years, which is an autobiographical account of my own life and experiences from losing my mum to where I find myself in this current moment. And it's not finished, and I've written probably 50,000 words of what will be an 90,000 book when it's edited, and I've done it. And that tells my story, and I've always wanted that to be like this kind of hand-down thing so my daughter can understand me as a dad and what makes me tick and why cars are such an intrinsic part and what I've done to deal with the traumas that I've suffered from losing my mum and other things that have happened along the way to get me to this point now. And my part of my own therapy that I've found myself is like I've done talking therapy before and I've had cognitive behavioural therapy and I've spoke to people about the struggles I've faced since childhood trauma. But the biggest therapy that I've found is in writing. Like that's my thing now.
I was just about to ask about the writing.
Yeah.
So obviously when you first showed me that first edition, obviously there was text written in there and I was reading through and I was just wondering, and I asked you and you said, oh, I've written it all. And I was like, oh, I never saw you as an author.
I was going to say, I've never had you down as a writer.
Yeah, I never had you down. And I was very kind of taken aback by reading what you had written.
Yeah,
it was very, I don't know how to describe it, very, I don't know how to describe it, but it was very, But I never had you down as an author. How did that come about? Was that just you pen to paper and just going for it over the years?
Yeah,
or was
it was a funny one really. So I think what had happened is I ran my own business for 10, 12 years. And at the end of 10, 12 years or so, I felt like a failure. I felt like I'd not achieved. And I thought, if somebody had put a decade of time into a business, they should be much further on in life than they are now. And my business was struggling to make ends meet at the time
what were
because
you
I was.
doing?
So I was actually in so randomly, but this is a whole different story. So I worked in and around the golf industry, but I
okay.
ran for myself. Born of a crazy idea, because I am an ideas kind of person, and I like to think there's a little bit of an entrepreneurial side to me. I'd developed this portable mini golf course that I could take round for events, but then after doing one, I sold one and then rented them to different campsites, hotels, different things. And then the first big sale I got, I actually sold a golf course to Sky B head offices in Twickenham. And I was like, oh my God, there's a business in this thing. So I used to then sell putting greens, driving range equipment, mini golf courses all over the UK. But my business was kind of drying up, but I think I was going through a little bit of kind of almost fatigue of thinking like, I've been at this for so long. Why is it not generating me the life? Yeah, and you hear of people's like overnight successes, but I'd slogged at it for like a decade. And one of the most amazing things happened, and he's a friend now, but I was with a guy, and it was in like the final days of my business, and I was like, am I going to wind this thing up? What's going to happen? So I will get on to why I came into writing almost. And I went to meet this guy, and this guy had scaled a business and he'd raised capital investment, and one of his ideas had sold to Callaway back in 2020 or late 19. It sold for $1 billion. $1 billion. And I'm sat having lunch with this guy, and he said something to me, a bit like that question that asked me kind of curveball. He's like, when you're not doing your golf stuff, what do you do for a living? And I was too embarrassed to tell him, like, this is my living, this is what I do, because he was like, I'd put him up there as like such a wise kind of business acumen kind of guy. And I said, well, just do this. And he was like, okay. But he's not like, kind of thinking, he was very like, just open and like, all right, okay. And what do you do? Blah, blah, blah. So fast forward then to probably the time when I knew the business was kind of going under, and I applied for a job within the golf industry, and I got it. And the job was on minimum wage, and I felt like I'd done a decade of work, and all it had got me was to minimum wage. And I was like, and I hit this brick wall, and my wife was really understanding. I says, I need to go away. She says, where are you going to go? I was like, I just need to go away. Just need to just disappear. I was like, don't worry, I'm coming back, but I need some headspace. So I went to Switzerland and just thought, clean air, just do that. And what was designed to be, or what was almost kind of always going to be this like, right, headspace, take a couple of books, think about what you want to do. You've got this job. I'd just landed this new job, so I'd only been in it a couple of months, and that's when I still needed to get away, because it was all very much like, my business is gone, I'm back to minimum wage, I just need to get away. So what was going to be this like soul-searching kind of 5-day break, I literally landed, first pub I went in, drink, next pub, drink. And I was basically just there drowning my sorrows, feeling like so shit about the position I found myself. And that's a little bit of a shit thing to say. I'm in Switzerland. I paid to go to Switzerland.
Did you go on your own as well?
Yeah, I
Going
just went
for
on my own.
drinks
Just
and
went on my own.
whatever,
And all I'm
but-
doing is
yeah.
falling in and out of bars. And then I went on one day when I was for breakfast in the morning. So it was in an area, Basel, where you can actually you could step from where I am to you. You can be in Germany, step into France, step into Switzerland, so on like a border point.
Yeah.
And I sat down for, I say breakfast, but it was just like a bit of a lunch. And I had this like absolute moment of like clarity. I'd obviously I'd had a few beers the day before, but I was sat there at this table and I was like, this is fucking awesome. Just like, it was just people watching on a corner, blue sky. And I just thought, this, if you could bottle this feeling, this is what I'm after. This is what I really am searching for. And again, what I'm finding like is, again, it's the balance. But the balance thing came about, so the lady brought me food out and I'd ordered just some bread, some local cheese, some honey. And I sat there and I was like, bit of cheese, honey on the bread, eating it, thinking, oh my God, this is like, this is a perfect moment. Let's bottle this moment. So I took a notepad that I'd had in my bag, and I wrote bread, cheese, honey, and I draw this picture of a head and like segmented it into 3. And I thought, you got to find that balance, Ian. It's the bread, it's the cheese, it's the honey. Find that balance. And this book that is This Life in Half a Second said, like, do something that scares you. And I used to write poetry, like really like enjoy writing poetry.
Yeah.
And I thought, writing, you should write again. And like I took the sketch, put it back in my book, and I'll not lie, I just forgot about it and went about my daily business. I did a nice train ride down to Interlaken, and I went on a speedboat and just forgot about everything. But then when I got back, it was a few months later that I thought, you thought about doing this thing you should really do. You should really think about writing to see whether it helps. And so I had a pile of books, and then I opened this one book, and the sketch fell out the book. Like that moment. I opened the book, the sketch that I drew in Switzerland fell out the book. And it was at that point I was like, right, you're going to start writing your own story, and it's going to help you find that balance. And I'd probably say that book and that trip and everything was the catalyst from being in a minimum wage job and thinking I'd kind of failed to actually building myself back up to a point where
on your feet again.
Yeah, so it was
So
like.
how many years ago was that then? When was that?
So I went to Switzerland in, what would it have been, 2019?
Yeah,
2019, and it was one of the most.
So it's literally 5-6 years then that you've been back on it.
Yeah, and one of the things I could have done very easily. That was the thing. So one of the things I thought is, if I'm going to go on this journey, I need to probably get people involved. So one of the guys I rang, the guy I talked about who'd made this kind of, who'd sold an idea, I contacted him and said, you asked me a question a long time ago and I was too embarrassed to answer, or I was embarrassed to tell you this is what I did for a living. I says, I'm starting a writing process. I says, how would you feel if I sent you some stuff to read as I do it? And he rang me and we had the most amazing phone call for like an hour and a half to say we didn't know each other. And now like I've been down to London to see him, and he's now scaling another business, which is raising a lot of money to do. He's already scaled another one with his brother. He's like this serial entrepreneur, but he's become part of this process, and I would not do it like without him.
That's cool.
So we know that I've got a long way to go, and it was always going to be like, I want to write this book, and with this happening, with the heart, I've kind of, again, like when I lost the love for cars, thinking, shit, is this ever going to happen? Am I ever going to finish this book? And I said to my missus, you know what, it might take a bit longer, but I am going to finish it. I am going to finish it. So, yeah, it's been like, for me, it's been a real therapeutic kind of...
That's kind of like what I was saying though with the creativity. Like, that sounds like how you are as well. Like you're working towards something.
Your writing is your escape.
Yeah, so when it came to doing this book for the club, although it's been like, okay, I'll write the foreword, and I've written pieces for the newsletter that I've thoroughly enjoyed, which I'll show you when it's released. But just editing other people's words, I found like, I actually enjoy like cutting down this and then thinking, how do we shoehorn what you want to say into 150, 200 words? It's not my writing, it's their story, but editing a book and actually doing something creative like that has been like a real kind of, and it's taken a long time, just obviously you probably appreciate, to get the one book together.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's the process, isn't it? About
Yeah.
You get there.
Yeah.
Tell you what, there's one pillar that you've got, and you mentioned quite a lot, is your missus.
Yeah.
She sounds like a gem.
Yeah.
The fact she just seems to support you. Right, I need to get away from you. I need to go to Switzerland. Find yourself.
Yeah.
Like,
and bear in mind, my daughter was only 2 at the time, so 2 or 3, and like, so there's part of me now that feels this huge amount of guilt and like disappointed in myself that I had to. I felt like the answers were somewhere else and not at home, and I feel guilty for even leaving her for that time that I did. But I think we appreciate now as a family, and she appreciates that it was the catalyst, and I didn't know it at the time because, like I say, I folded that book and I parked it for months without doing anything about it. But it was 100% a catalyst to actually doing it. And again, it was the catalyst to me being in that job that was on minimum wage, but then going, you know what you love? You love cars. You love cars. You need to get into the car industry. And yeah, I worked, before I worked at Great Northern Classics, in a car museum, because because of what I was trying to discover and finding me and finding a balance.
Is
me,
that Great British Car Journey?
Yeah,
Is that where
yeah,
you were?
yeah.
So when did you start there then?
I started there in 21. So did all of 21, which I think was their first year in business. I might be wrong, but did all the first year from when they opened.
Yeah.
Did
What happened during lockdown then? If you're doing the golf thing at the time?
So I was working in the golf industry when there was lockdown.
Yeah.
So I think
you
it was
were
20,
working then. You weren't furloughed.
Yeah. So I was one of the ones because golf was an industry that was brought back very quickly.
Oh, okay.
So we had
Well,
like
it's
a
outdoors,
short.
isn't it, I
I had
guess,
a short time off work, but then they were like, right, people can hit the golf courses. So I was there, and yeah. So yeah, it was just so strange, but it was the catalyst to going. You know what? If you're trying to balance this bread, cheese, and honey and these ingredients, and you can find a job that you're in, and it's around what you love, surely that's what we all want to be in, don't we? We want to be in doing something that, I would say, what do you say? Love what you do, do what you love what you do, and that being around cars and car people and everything else. But it all came about from that one catalyst, which is just random, really.
I'm not gonna lie, this is the most inspiring podcast.
Yeah, it genuinely is. It's the only time
I did not expect this.
You know, you said a minute like when you were talking about your partner, you like it. You know, it made you choke up, and I was like, making me choke up.
He'll cry before you do.
Oh yeah, 100%.
She's been amazing, and she has been like, you know, because again, I'd say entrepreneurial, ideas-y kind of person, but for her to get behind the club like she has and like buying into my vision of it, and then as it develops, like, well, why is it you're doing it that way? And I'll tell her, and she'll, all right. And then you know you're onto a good thing when your missus goes, you know what? I think this is really interesting. It's really good. I think you're onto something. And like, you know, yeah, there.
Well, it's the same way when you first told us about this car club that you're putting together and whatever else. I was like, oh. Obviously, I didn't think this, but I was like, oh, another car club.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, that's what
Yeah.
normally most people would think.
Yeah.
But then when you start telling me more and more about it, you start realising, like, okay, this is a little bit different. And then, sorry, everyone, I've got tonsillitis, so...
And I've made you do a podcast, sorry.
I know, yeah. It's literally like all the drinks are starting to run out and I can just feel my throat starting to go. So the Jakeman's has gone in and I'm like, quick, I work. But yeah, then you started telling me about like, it's almost like, the word I was trying to look for is very almost arty.
Right.
I don't know how else to explain it. Like having a quick skim through the book, like the pictures, the text, it's very...
Oh yeah, it's like an exhibition almost.
Yeah,
like an art exhibition.
It is literally an exhibition in a book.
Like how what Alex was saying from here, how he wants his car shows to be.
Yeah.
Like almost like an art exhibition.
That's
kind of how
And
your
I
book is.
love the idea of that.
If you went to the Tate Modern and saw the book, like, you know,
It almost fit. Yeah. It's like in book form, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I really like that.
Well, one of the good things, like I say, about finding the publisher, the one I didn't settle on in the end, but it's like, you know, you find your natural fit. And I got down to this publisher and they'd laid all these books out that they'd produced because the guy who owns it is like a car guy.
okay.
Even though he produces books in every genre and different.
his
As soon as you're like, I'm doing this car club, and he's like, cars, I love cars. So he'd laid all these books down for me, and then some of the stuff that I see, so they're like the official publisher that did like this hardback book that was like on the 918 Porsche, and it's got a plaque on the front of the book, and he showed me, and it was just like, you know, this kind of blank printed copy of the book, but showing me finishes and what they can achieve as a publisher. But the buy-in straight away was like, I'm a car guy. I love cars, and like, well, yeah. And you just kind of.
Is he a member yet?
No.
Oh yeah.
So he's the managing director of the business, but I would say it's like me. Would I be a member of my own club driving around in a Mercedes SLK? Probably not. But his aspiration is there, you know. But I think he's one of these guys that like he's a busy guy. He's a very busy guy, you know, but. What I like about that is responsiveness. When you speak to someone, you drop them an email at 11 o'clock, think, and not pick that up. And at 11 o'clock, he's messaging you back saying, got your message, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, he's not a member, but what a supporter. Like, they've already, like, can we run a story about your book on our website? Absolutely.
Oh,
you know, like, so into it. And their, like, reproduction manager, Robbie, is like, we do a lot of projects, but this project here, and it's like, he says it's the highlight of what I've done this year. So, obviously, we printed in December. It's like the highlight of what I've done this year, and that's just nice. And you think he's not BSing that as well.
Yeah,
It's
he
like
genuinely
he's
thinks that.
genuinely telling you that he's enjoyed doing it because it's just been an interesting project. So that's dead nice.
That's
Dead
so
nice.
cool, man.
That is
so
really cool.
No, genuinely fair play. Like, we've known you for a year now,
Exactly.
and we've spoken a hell of a lot.
We
Like,
didn't know
you'll
this
come into
much.
the unit, you'll come vent, we'll vent, and we'll just talk about random stuff. And
Exactly.
it's amazing, like, long form content. This is why I love podcasts.
Yeah.
Just because, like, they're just.
Well, like you guys have said, like we've got like what an hour over minutes to record. You won't realise how quick it goes.
My alarm just went off to tell me that it's like in fact, that red light flashing on
It's
that camera means it's about
That's
to run out
really
of
good
memory.
time. My bladder also knows.
Oh, really?
'cause
Yeah, I've had a beer
I
and a
need
water.
a piss really badly.
Shall we wrap up there?
Let's wrap it up. Yeah, thank you so much.
No, thank
No,
you.
we'll
so
have to have you on
much.
again at some point.
We're gonna. I feel like
there's
we've
loads
got
more on
so
one house.
much.
Oh, yeah,
We've got so much to talk about, so we're gonna have to carry this on.
Yeah.
No
We're gonna
problem.
have to. But yeah, thank you for coming.
been a pleasure. Thank
We've
you.
been talking about having you on since we started this podcast.
Yeah,
we have,
yeah.
We've
Because I
only
know
been
how
around
busy you
since
guys.
when
I know
we
how
had
busy
Brad
you
on.
guys are.
Yeah.
Mate, it's just one of those things, isn't it? But
Yeah.
we got there. We got there, and we'll do it again.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you everyone for
Thanks,
watching.
guys.
Yeah, thank you very much for
listening. Don't forget to subscribe, follow on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, all that jazz.
We'll put all the links in for your stuff.
And then
cool.
Automotive Utopia on Instagram. We'll put a link in. Any other links that you.
When the reels
you
come
do,
out, you've got the Instagram, haven't you? We can collaborate on a reel as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
people will see this.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for watching.
cool.
I'm gonna go have a wee now.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Wait, well done. That was mint.
Thanks.
That was genuine.
Yeah, that was really good.
I'm not gonna lie. You got me. I'm gonna be caught. I guarantee, as soon as I start telling the missus,
You'll start choking up.
I'll start choking up and she'll start crying.
Oh, nice.
um,
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Aaron, just turn your mic off before.
I'll put it down.
That's not very interesting, so.